I've been making these best of type of videos for the Nintendo Switch for about 4 to 5 years now, and every single time I do, it's been difficult. I mean, it's just so hard to narrow down the Switch's vast and phenomenal library to just a select few games because it really is that good. The Nintendo Switch is legitimately one of the greatest consoles ever made, and as we near its eventual successor, I want to take one more look at the best of the best the Nintendo Switch has to offer. Today, I'm going to actually take a look at 30 of the best Nintendo Switch games that you can play right now. Though, for list purposes, I decided not to include independent games, and that's not because they're not great, but instead it's actually because I have a separate video for the top 30 best independent games for the Switch. So technically, these two videos combined are actually 60 plus games, so make sure to go check that video out as well. But I mean, yeah, we got a lot to get into here, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Number 30, and to start this list off, I have Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. This game is just such a weird and wonderful combination of IP. I mean, this is a Ubisoft-developed Mario game. I would have never expected that combination, but it's actually a humorous, tactical RPG. You know, it might sound bizarre on paper, because, well, honestly, it is, but it's actually a ton of fun to play. In Sparks of Hope, you have a lot of control over each character and how they move, and I think that's one of the things that really makes it a unique, special RPG. It has that Mario flair to it, and each character can work together to do things like a team jump as one such example, and there's also plenty of customization by combining Sparks together for different abilities. So definitely don't overlook Mario plus Rabbids. Number 29, Unicorn Overlord. Now, I could have put a lot of different games on these first two spots, but I decided to go with one of the most unique and most innovative RPGs that we've seen in a very, very long time. Now, that's part because I feel like this is a perfect pick-up-and-play experience for the Switch. Unicorn Overlord is a creative blend of real-time strategy combined with automated turn-based combat in squad-based battles. And even though the battles themselves are automated, there's a lot of depth to its strategy thanks to its massive roster of units and how you set up your squad with a seemingly unlimited amount of options. It even has an online mode that you can truly put your skills to the test. So if you're looking for something just a little bit different that also has some depth to it, then Unicorn Overlord is a phenomenal option. Number 28, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Now, it's been a long while since we've gotten a brand new Prince of Persia game, and admittedly, when The Lost Crown was first revealed, there was a lot of skepticism, to put things nicely, but now that it's officially out, I can safely say that it is a fantastic game. Quite honestly, it's really just one of the better Metroidvanias available. There's a lot of cool abilities that you can unlock, its combat feels excellent, the platforming is a lot of fun, and it even has a rather solid story. Now, I'm not going to say that its story is mind-blowing per se, but it'll keep you invested. It really is just the entire package, which kind of makes sense in retrospect. It comes from the same team that brought us Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends, and sadly, Ubisoft has since disbanded this team, but as one final gift to us, they gave us another great 2D game that we can enjoy for years to come. Number 27, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. Now, if you're somebody like me who grew up in the 90s, it's almost hard to believe that Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, previously known as PlayStation mascots, are now available on a Nintendo console. But, well, here they are, and what can I say? They feel right at home. These are perfect games to pick up and play on the Nintendo Switch. You have the Crash N. Sane trilogy as well as Crash Bandicoot 4, and these are very challenging and also very unique 3D platformers. To this day, I've not played another high-quality platformer that plays quite like Crash Bandicoot. It's easily among the greatest platformers ever made, and you can really also say the same thing about Spyro Reignited. Spyro, though, is instead more of a traditional collectathon platformer. It's not quite as challenging as Crash Bandicoot, but it is still very good, and, I mean, plus, you get to play as a dragon. If you ask me, Spyro is one of the coolest mascots around. Number 26, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It's almost hard to believe, but this is actually Kirby's first outing as a 3D platformer. And not only is it good, but dare I say, it might actually be among the best entries for the Kirby franchise ever made. I mean, it really feels like a perfect match. Now, it's not necessarily a very difficult game, but what it lacks in challenge, it more than makes up for in its creative level design and its fun factor. There's plenty of powers in hell, there's a bunch of fun collectibles to find, and it really is just a joy to play. Number 25, Monster Hunter Rise. Now, the Switch might have missed out on the Monster Hunter World phenomenon, but what they instead got might have been just as good, if not even better. Capcom specifically designed Monster Hunter Rise with the Switch in mind, and I have to say that Capcom knocked it out of the park. This is not just a spin-off to the Monster Hunter franchise. This is a full-fledged Monster Hunter experience that takes the series back to a handheld device, and because of its art style, it looks fantastic. What I really like about Rise, though, compared to other Monster Hunter games, is its new gameplay additions. There's more mobility and verticality than ever before thanks to its new dog-like companion and its new wire bug mechanic that allows you to zip across its world. You can also use that in combat, which just adds a whole new layer to its monster hunting. Number 24, Mario Party Superstars and Jamboree. Ever since I was a kid on the Nintendo 64, Mario Party has always been one of my go-to party games. Now, whether that be with your friends or your family, Mario Party is an absolute blast to play together, albeit it is a little bit chaotic. There is a reason that people like to joke and say that, well, Mario Party is where friendships die. There are some mechanics that feels a little cheap at times, and you can easily go from first to last in a blink of an eye. But at the end of the day, it's really just all fun and games, and I will say that Mario Party Jamboree does cut some of that cheapness out with its new optional pro rules, and the minigames are just as fun as they ever were. Number 23, Splatoon 3. One thing that Nintendo really prides themselves on is innovation. They don't want to simply replicate their competition, and Splatoon is a perfect example of that. Instead of a gritty team-based shooter with high-profile rifles, Nintendo decided to make a colorful platform shooter that combines squids with paint guns. It's different, but there's actually a lot of strategy involved, and it's really just a blast to play. I'd even go so far as to say that Splatoon 3 is one of the more complete shooters around. There's a single-player mode, a competitive multiplayer, and you can even play cooperatively to fight off waves of AI enemies together. It has pretty much everything that you'd want in one single package, which is kind of a rarity in today's world. Number 22, Animal Crossing: New Horizons. If there's one game that took the gaming world by storm during one of its darkest hours, that would have to be the ever-adorable Animal Crossing: New Horizons. This game absolutely exploded when it first released. It actually still remains the second best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch, which is kind of crazy to think about, but there is a reason for that. It's not only adorable, but it's also a very relaxing and charming experience. And it also has a highly addictive gameplay loop. It's really just one of those games that you can play every single day as you do things like plant trees, you catch bugs, you go fishing, among several other things. And, that might all sound mundane on the surface, but don't be all that surprised when you log in every single day as you build your very own tropical paradise. Number 21, The World Ends With You series. I have to be honest with you all. It's actually extremely disappointing to me that this series has now been overlooked not once, but twice. First with The World Ends With You on the Nintendo DS, and now with its sequel as well. These are very unique action JRPGs with just so much atmosphere. And, I just love their stylized art styles. In my opinion, the stories, the characters, the worlds, they're just so special, and they really stand out compared to other games. In each game, though, you find yourself in a parallel world where you have to play something called the Reaper's Game. If you win their game, you'll be able to return back to your own world, but if you lose, then, well, you and your team will die forever instead. It's a compelling, high-stakes story. Now, the reason I'm kind of talking about these games together, though, is because their stories are connected in a pretty major way. I do recommend playing both The World Ends With You and its sequel, Neo: The World Ends With You. Luckily, both are available for the Nintendo Switch. Number 20, Mario Wonder. One of the first games I ever played was Super Mario Bros. 3, and after all these years, it is still, in my opinion, one of the greatest games ever made. So without a doubt, I enjoyed Mario Wonder. It not only continues the brilliant platforming formula that Nintendo started more than 30 years ago, but it's also proof that Nintendo can still bring innovation to this longtime series. Now, I do wish that it offered a little bit more challenge than it does, but for what it lacks in challenge, it more than makes up for in its creativity, with new Wonder abilities around every single corner that completely transforms how you play. If anything else, I think Mario Wonder is easily one of the best introductory games for players of all ages and skill levels. Number 19, Luigi's Mansion. It's actually pretty amazing to think about how Luigi's Mansion took off this generation. What was once viewed as a cult classic for the GameCube has now become one of Nintendo's most successful franchises. Luigi's Mansion 3 sold around 13 million copies, and this pushed Nintendo to not only acquire the studio that worked on it, but they also greenlit a Luigi's Mansion 2 HD remaster. Now, I think Luigi's Mansion 3 is the better of the two, but they're still both great in their own ways. They're basically a combination of Ghostbusters with the Mario IP, and I mean, I am all for it. You play as the often underutilized scaredy cat brother in a spooky, albeit very creative setting, where you'll solve puzzles and battle ghosts with really just the coolest vacuum ever made. I also have to kind of say here that Luigi's Mansion 3 is actually one of the better visual showcases for the Nintendo Switch. Number 18, Dragon Quest XI. Now, personally, I've always preferred JRPGs on my handhelds, and that's why to me, even though it might technically have better visuals on other platforms, I still prefer to play games like Dragon Quest XI on the Nintendo Switch. Now, in many ways, I describe Dragon Quest XI as an old-school turn-based RPG, but brought to a modern era of gamers, and I say that in the best way possible. There's a reason that some fans believe the 90s was the golden age of JRPGs. In Dragon Quest XI, though, you will go on a grand journey with a party of memorable characters. It has a fantastic story. It has that timeless Toriyama art style, rest in peace. And of course, it has that strategical turn-based combat that we all love so much. If you do miss those old-school JRPGs, though, then Dragon Quest XI is an excellent game to jump into. Number 17, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. One of the amusing turn of events for the Switch is that, ironically, Nintendo kind of proved that the Wii U had a great library of exclusives. Some of the Switch's best games were actually previously on the Wii U, and that does include Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Unfortunately, a lot of people missed out on this game previously being a Wii U exclusive, but now that it got an improved version for the Switch, well, now more people can see that it truly is a great 2D platformer that offers a real challenge, creative level design, and also a lot of variety. Each character has their own unique traits that diversifies its gameplay. I mean, let me tell you right now, the Donkey Kong Country series has always and still has some of the best music in all of gaming, hands down. Number 16, Fire Emblem. Now, for anybody who likes strategy games, I mean, you really can't go wrong with the Fire Emblem series. It's widely viewed as one of the greatest strategy franchises of all time, and for a very good reason. And even though I do prefer some of the older entries as opposed to the Switch titles, there are still some great options on the Switch. There's Fire Emblem Three Houses, which has a social sim element to it. It's a little slower paced than usual, but there's a ton of content as you can play through multiple different story campaigns. So you can easily put 100 plus hours into Three Houses, no problem. And then there's Fire Emblem Engage, which focuses more on its combat, and it also plays into nostalgia by bringing back various fan favorite characters. Now, for me personally, I do prefer the focus to be on its combat, but at the end of the day, I mean, these are both great entries for any kind of strategy fan. Number 15, Astral Chain. Now, this is a really unique entry for this list. Astral Chain is a hack and slash game, but you actually control two different characters at once. You have the main protagonist, and then you also have this alien-like creature that's attached to a chain, hence the name of the game, Astral Chain. You can even swap through different creatures for different abilities, and you can use those creatures in both combat as well as for puzzles. Now, that might sound like it could get a little bit messy, but this actually works surprisingly well. And I also have to say that Astral Chain is yet another visual showcase for the Nintendo Switch, especially for the OLED model where its neon colors just pop off screen. Number 14, Bayonetta series. Now, there's some games out there that are just quite simply fun, with a big capital F-U-N, and that's exactly how I would describe the Bayonetta series. You can now play the entire trilogy on the Switch, and they are just flat out S-tier hack and slash style of games. Now, the stories are over the top, they don't necessarily take themselves overly serious, but they are always entertaining. Again, it's just a series that prioritizes that raw fun factor. Now, admittedly though, there is a big jump in quality from Bayonetta 1 to Bayonetta 2. So if you do start out with the first game, my recommendation is Just don't stop there, because it only gets better from that point forward. Then from Bayonetta 2 to 3, it adds even more combat options by including monsters that you can control in battle. Now, in my opinion, all 3 of these games are amazing, and if you like them enough, maybe go ahead and try its spin-off as well, Bayonetta Origins. Number 13, Octopath Traveler 2 in HD 2D games. Now, I'm going to go ahead and combine all of the HD 2D games for this spot. This is actually one of my favorite trends in gaming right now, not only to bring back some of these all-time great classics with a fresh coat of paint, but we're also getting new games as well. And this list includes games like Live Alive HD, there's Star Ocean Second Story R, there's Triangle Strategy, and Square Enix, they're currently bringing back the Dragon Quest trilogy as well. But the game that started this trend in the first place is Octopath Traveler. This is a completely new, modernized JRPG that takes inspiration from Final Fantasy VI. Now, that is quite the game that takes some inspiration from. All-time classic, let me tell you. And while I think the first game was good, I think Octopath Traveler 2 is even better. You have 8 different characters with their own unique motives and stories. Now, some will be better than others, but it becomes a cohesive experience as its adventure unfolds. It also has excellent combat, and I really just think that this is one of the better modern takes for JRPGs. Much like a lot of the other games that I mentioned for this spot, an instant classic easily. Number 12, the Persona series. Now, continuing on with the JRPG genre, anytime there's a discussion about the greatest JRPGs ever made, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to hear about the Persona series, and there's a very good reason for that. These are legitimately some of the best games ever made, thanks to their stories, their music, their worlds, their characters, and even their turn-based combat. They really have everything that you'd want from a game like this. And the great thing here is that you can now play Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5 Royal on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I will say, even though Persona 5 Royal is the most popular of the 3, which, that's fine because it's a great game, but admittedly, Persona 4 Golden is actually my own personal favorite. Now, each to their own, but the way these games work is that you play as an everyday student who uncovers a parallel world that affects their own real world. So the gameplay is then divided into a social sim, where you manage your everyday school life, and then the demon world, where it becomes more of a dungeon-crawling RPG. I mean, seriously though, these are flat-out amazing games, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. Number 11, Zelda Link's Awakening. Now, you can also throw Echoes of Wisdom into the spot if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and refrain from doing that, simply because the performance in Echoes of Wisdom is pretty bad. I think it could actually end up being a prime Nintendo Switch 2 backwards compatible game that has now been confirmed, but as for Link's Awakening, I love this game. I've always held a special connection with the top-down Zelda series, and the remake of Link's Awakening is really just one of the most beloved entries in the series. I mean, it's got such an odd world and story, but it's an experience like no other. There's a mystery involved that just kind of sticks with you, and it's something that you're going to remember for a long time. Now, as for its gameplay, it doesn't necessarily have a huge world. This is technically an old Game Boy game, but it's perfectly put together with a ton to do around every corner. Number 10, Metroid Dread. Now, it took Nintendo a long time, far too long in my opinion, but they finally delivered us a brand new 2D Metroid game this generation, and boy, was it worth the wait. The planet Metroid Dread is more hostile than ever with its new killer robots that'll actually hunt you down. And I mean, if you like Metroidvanias, there is a ton to explore in Metroid Dread. It has a massive, atmospheric, and mysterious world to uncover. Where I think this game really separates itself from past entries, though, is in Samus's mobility. Her movement feels smoother than ever, and it really takes its exploration and backtracking to a whole new level. It might have taken Nintendo a long time to get Metroid Dread out to fans, but now that they have, it immediately has become one of the best Metroidvanias around. Number 9, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now, I can point to several different Pokemon games for the Switch, whether that be Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield being the mainline entries. Those are definitely going to be the competitive go-tos, but the one that stands out to me the most is the one that innovated the most, Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's a big departure from the mainline series, but with that, I also kind of think that it's one of the most refreshing Pokemon games that we've gotten in a very, very long time. It instead focuses on the origin of Pokemon, back when Pokemon aren't simply your friends that battles alongside you. Instead, they're actually a little bit more aggressive, and they will attack you like wild creatures. It makes you think of Pokemon in an entirely different way. And I will say that I think the story is actually really interesting, and even the turn-based combat is more challenging than the traditional games. That's something that I've always wanted from the Pokemon series, a real challenge, and you can get that from time to time in Legends Arceus. My only real complaint is that I wish it had more trainer battles, because I think that's when it's at its best. But even still, the Pokemon Company is definitely onto something here, and I hope its sequel continues to improve its formula. Number 8. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. The last few years for the Switch has been a return to form for Mario RPGs, which includes Super Mario RPG, Mario & Luigi Brothership, and in my opinion, their magnum opus, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. This is flat out one of my favorite games of all time. It's a charming, turn-based RPG adventure where you uncover the secrets of, well, the Thousand Year Door. Along your adventure, though, you'll team up with a charming cast of characters, and the story itself is not only interesting, but it's witty in a way that you'll constantly be smiling throughout its 30-plus hour campaign. Then to just kind of top things off, its combat is engaging thanks to its interactive elements. And I mean, seriously, if you've never played this game, now that it got a remake for the Switch, do yourself a favor, because it's really beloved for a very, very good reason. Number 7. Pikmin. The Pikmin series for years has secretly been one of Nintendo's best franchises, and I'm happy to say that you can now play the entire mainline series on the Nintendo Switch, being 1 through 4. Now, Pikmin 1 is my personal favorite, as I really enjoyed its time management aspect, but if you've never played these games before, these are special games for a reason. There's not many games out there that plays quite like the Pikmin series. It's a puzzle strategy game where you play as an astronaut who goes to an alien planet, a desolate Earth, and in order to survive its hostile conditions and to complete your mini goals, you'll need to utilize these little alien-like creatures named Pikmin, and in Pikmin 4 you even get a dog-like companion. Now, each Pikmin has their own unique abilities, and I mean, it's just so atmospheric, it's captivating, and charming, all meshed into a single game. The Pikmin games can kind of be hard to describe, but once you play them, you'll just kind of know why they're so beloved. I really can't recommend the Pikmin series enough. Number 6. Xenoblade 1 through 3. Similar to Pikmin, I would kind of describe Xenoblade as secretly being one of Nintendo's best franchises. It might not necessarily be as mainstream as some of their other games, but the quality is just otherworldly good. They all have great stories and characters. Now, the combat in Xenoblade, though, is a little bit different from other JRPGs. I guess if I compared them to anything, they kind of play similar to an MMO, where you choose your attacks in real-time battles. It's different, but if anything, that's just another reason that Xenoblade stands out. It's not necessarily trying to be like everything else, and because their stories are just so good, they're really just some of the more memorable experiences that you can have on the Nintendo Switch. Now, if you're new to the Xenoblade series, though, each game does have a standalone story, but they are still connected, and that really reveals itself in its third game. Luckily, though, you can play through the entire series on the Nintendo Switch. Number 5. Metroid Prime Remastered. It's almost kind of amusing to me that Metroid Prime has the remastered label, because it's legitimately one of the best looking games available for the Switch. This old GameCube game just pops off the screen, and its gameplay not only aged well, but really it's just better than ever before. Of course, Metroid Prime is held as one of the most atmospheric games of all time, and with its new visuals, that only increases that much more. But it's not just its visual improvements that makes it such a great game. Its controls are also much better. To me, that was Metroid Prime's most glaring issue in the original GameCube title, but they fixed that up in a remaster with a few different options, including dual analog support and also gyro aiming. So what was already viewed as one of the greatest games ever made somehow just got even better. It's easily one of the best games that you could play on the Nintendo Switch. Number 4. Mario Kart 8. I mean, what can I really say about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? This is legitimately one of the best-selling games ever made, with more than 60 million copies sold worldwide, and it is still selling very well. And you know what? There is a reason for that. It's easily one of the best pick-up-and-play games available for the Switch, and it's one of those rare games that anybody, and I mean anybody, can enjoy because it is an absolute blast. It doesn't matter what skill level you are, it's easy enough to grasp, and because of its chaotic nature, it gives everybody an opportunity to enjoy themselves. It also has a ton of content, especially with all of its DLC. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe very well might go down as the most complete Mario Kart experience to date, and it'll be very interesting to see how Nintendo advances this series with its eventual sequel. Number 3, Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's honestly crazy to think about what Nintendo achieved in Smash Bros. Ultimate. In many ways, Smash Bros. Ultimate is a tribute to gaming history, with some of the most beloved icons ever brought together in one single fighting game to duke it out. I mean, you can play as Cloud from Final Fantasy, you can play as Sora from Kingdom Hearts, Red from Pokemon, Ryu from Street Fighter, Sonic, well, from Sonic, and even Banjo-Kazooie, which is owned by Microsoft, out of all companies. I mean, it's truly insane how many characters they got for this game, and how many companies agreed to join the fray. But what makes it even better is that you can tell that they were truly passionate about bringing these characters to life. Each character offers a unique playstyle, and they're wonderfully animated with a lot of character. Nintendo and Bandai Namco poured a lot of effort into Smash Bros. Ultimate, and because of that, it's incredibly fun, and it's also one of those games that's easy to pick up and play, but it still has a very high skill ceiling if you really want to dive into its full capability. Number 2, Mario Odyssey. Ever since the release of Mario 64, Nintendo has been the de facto go-to for 3D platformers. When they drop a new 3D Mario entry, you just gotta know that it's going to be another timeless classic. And of course, Mario Odyssey fits that narrative perfectly. What's more here, though, is that you can even argue that it might be the best entry in the entire 3D Mario series. Now, that's subjective, but what makes this game so special is the innovation added to its classic formula. As usual, it's a collectathon platformer where you seek out hidden items, and I mean there are a ton of hidden items in Mario Odyssey, but its new capping mechanics completely transforms its gameplay on a regular basis. You can throw Mario's new cap at different objects, and then you'll become said object. That might be a frog, a Goomba, or even a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, I love this mechanic, it's creative, and it's just super fun to play. And here we are at the number 1 spot, and of course it has to be none other than Zelda. Though I will say, there are some caveats for this spot, because I actually included multiple games for the top spot. At the end of the day, there is a debate on which Zelda game you might prefer. There's Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, which are full-blown open-world games. These are the newer entries, and if you like to explore, there's a ton of things to do and a lot of things to uncover. These are by far the most popular Zelda games ever made, but one thing they really lack are those classic-style dungeons and tools that unlock as you progress through its adventure, so they do feel very different. And if you prefer the classic playstyle that prioritizes dungeons and problem-solving, then Skyward Sword HD is a really good entry as well. Now, personally, I do prefer the classic Zelda games, and I actually think the Skyward Sword has one of the better Zelda stories out there. It also has a great art style, and yes, those dungeons are fantastic as well. But all in all, I mean, the open world Zelda games are also amazing, and I completely understand why so many people love them as well. There's really no right answer here, it's just about which one you prefer, because they're all amazing in their own way. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Zelda is Zelda, and yeah, Zelda's pretty amazing. And there it is. 30 Switch games, and honestly, we definitely talked about more than just 30 games. There's just so much to play on the Nintendo Switch, but if I missed one of your favorite games, make sure to let me know in the comments below, and until next time, make sure to subscribe for more content just like this, and peace out.